Hello everyone. So I've decided that I'm going to do another video on muscle twitching. And the reason why I want to do another video is because out of all of the messages that I get on like Facebook, Instagram and on here, the one thing that seems to be like a running theme is that people are worried about their muscle twitches. And where I've experienced this myself, I felt like I wanted to do another video. I don't feel like I fully addressed everything that I wanted to address on my previous video, so yeah, I just thought I would do another one. So apologies if I repeat myself, but yeah, I'm just going to go for it because if you know my videos by now, you'll know that I don't plan them out. I just kind of like just start blabbering, but hey. So just a quick overview on my own personal story with muscle twitches. I got them for the first time well, almost 2 years ago. It was after my daughter was born, and I think personally that they were triggered because of the fact that I had a really stressful labour. I had no sleep, well, for the first good couple of months, and yeah, basically I was twitching from head to toe all day, every day, really bad. And I had never googled muscle twitching before, didn't really know anything about it, so when I googled it and ALS came up, which is also known as motor neuron disease, I thought 1000% this is what I had. And I think a lot of people with health anxiety, we do jump to the worst conclusion. So if we see a list of medical conditions, we will look at the worst one, and then we will start looking at the signs and symptoms, and that's exactly what I did. And actually I started off just having the muscle twitches, and then I started to get twitches in my tongue, so I thought that I had the bulbar onset. I then started to drop things. I was clumsy. I remember whenever I would carry my daughter from my car to my front door, which is a very short distance, my left leg kept just giving up on me, and a couple of times I almost like nearly dropped my daughter's car seat. So as you can imagine, I was like 100,000% convinced that I had ALS because of these twitches. So they did go away eventually. They took about, I would say I had them for about 5 months, and I feel that I didn't really do anything to make them go away as such, but I got so depressed with my postnatal depression that I wasn't focusing on them anymore because there was so much other stuff going on in my head. And I was to the point where I was just like suicidal because I was so like mentally unwell that I just didn't give a shit anymore. I was like, oh, do you know what? I don't even care. And weirdly, as soon as that happened and I wasn't focusing on them anymore and I wasn't Googling anymore, they went away. But unfortunately, that wasn't my only experience with them. They came back a couple of months later when I convinced myself that I had lymphoma. So that was obviously a really stressful time for me, and they came back with a vengeance. And they came back a third time the beginning of this the beginning of this year. And this time really freaked me out because it was mostly on the left side of my body. So obviously I was concerned. So I think it's important to remember as well when it comes to muscle twitching that a lot of people with anxiety will get them purely because when we're anxious, you know, you've got to visualize it. When we're anxious, our body is flooding with stress hormones. So you imagine now, years and years and years ago, when we didn't have this kind of mental trauma that we do now, if a caveman had run from a lion, let's say, and then, you know, his fight or flight response had been turned on, he got away, and he's like in a corner somewhere really heavily breathing, he probably would have had muscle twitches. And the reason why was because he's exerted his body, he's been in a panic mode, and his body has been flushed with all of these stress hormones and adrenaline. So that would be a natural response. The issue is now with us is that we are triggering this for no physical reason. We're doing it with our minds alone. So when we're anxious, our body thinks that there's some kind of threat, which there isn't, So our body reacts in a way that it would if we were being chased by a lion. So twitching is a normal response. It's our body is being flooded with these hormones, it's flooded with adrenaline, and we're twitching. But of course, because it says online that muscle twitching can be a symptom of ALS, we read it and we panic, and the twitching gets worse and we focus on it more, and it's just a horrible, horrible cycle. And I can't empathize with you guys enough, because those were the darkest times of my life. I remember just laying in bed, my whole body was twitching, my tongue was twitching, and I just was giving up, because I just thought to myself, I've 100% got it. But it's so important to remember that anxiety is a massive reason for these twitches. So there's something called benign fasciculation syndrome, which are benign twitches. And it can be caused by, quite a few things. It could be you could be deficient in something like magnesium, but anxiety being one of the main ones. But of course, we read all of these things and we see that anxiety is one of the causes, but we automatically disregard it. And I did the same thing. And people used to say to me, yeah, but Shara, you're an anxious person. Doesn't it make sense that it would be anxiety? And I was like, no, I definitely have ALS. And especially, like I said, when I started dropping things and these other signs and symptoms come along, and it was just some sort of cruel joke that my brain was doing to me. But a lot of people message me and they're worried about the same thing. They've been having these muscle twitches for a while. They think they've got ALS. They don't know what to do about it. And I think one of the worst things about having muscle twitching is it's not something that you can just go to your doctor and they can kind of 100% tell you what it is. And it's something that not a lot of doctors know. What am I trying to say? Sorry, that came out wrong. So in my experience, when I've gone to see doctors and things like that, they don't always know that muscle twitching is a symptom of anxiety. So my one doctor did, and she was like, it's 100% your anxiety. But some doctors, when they think of anxiety, they think of chest pain, palpitations, panic attacks. They don't think of muscle twitching. So you might go to your doctors and you might say, I'm having these muscle twitches, and then they might say, oh, okay, we'll do some bloods on you. And then the panic sets in, because you're like, oh, the doctor doesn't think it's anxiety. It's got to be something worse. And another thing with ALS, and I think this is why a lot of us fear it, is that there isn't a sort of straightforward test to diagnose it. So with certain things, you can test with your blood, or you can have a biopsy, or you can have it an ECG, but with ALS, that people that genuinely do have it, it's usually diagnosed by kind of eliminating everything else first, and they do something called an EMG, which your doctor is not going to send you for unless you have some serious clinical weakness, and something that they can definitely say, this is concerning. So that is why I think it torments a lot of us, is because we don't have something that we can just go and do and we'll just kind of get rid of our panic. And another reason I think a lot of us worry about ALS with health anxiety is a lot of us have sort of a fear of suffering. We don't want to suffer. We don't want to get ill. And unfortunately, ALS is a horrible disease. There's no cure for it. I don't want to trigger anyone here, so I don't want to talk too much into it. But I think for a lot of us, out of all of the kind of diseases and issues that we can have in life, ALS is probably our worst fear, because it's the worst. Let's not beat around the bush here. These people end up in wheelchairs and they can't do anything for themselves. So it is completely natural for us to be utterly terrified of it. You know what I mean? And even though we know that it's rare, it's still no comfort, because we think, my gosh, if that happened to me, how on earth would I cope? There's no cure at the moment, and it's just a horrible thing. So a lot of people kind of worry about where their twitches are. So I've always kind of said in my videos, and I believe from the research that I've done, that widespread twitching, twitching that is all over your body or in multiple places, is usually nothing to be concerned about, because that's not how ALS works. Obviously somebody will always say that there was this rare case where it was different, but that is the same for any medical condition out there. But like I said, from the research that I've done, the first thing that usually happens is clinical weakness. So that isn't feeling weak, that isn't feeling like something's a bit heavy, it is having actual clinical weakness that a doctor can see. So it could be that you can't lift your arm above your head anymore, maybe you can't hold your favourite cup anymore. Something will be very different, to the point where your loved ones will be able to notice, and you know, if you went to a doctor, they would be able to see that you physically can't do something. So that's usually how it starts, and from what I've read, it usually starts in one of your hands or one of your feet. So it could be, let's say that it starts in your left foot, right? It could be that you're constantly falling over, you've got a bit of a limp, you've got a bit of a foot drop, or it could start in your hand, and like I said, you know, you can't lift your arm above your head, you can't lift things up anymore. So just be reassured that if the only thing that you have right now is muscle twitching, from what I've read, that is an ALS, because ALS starts with weakness in one area of the body. So what usually happens is you get weakness in, say, your hands, then the muscles in your hand will start to atrophy, which means that they die, and then once the muscle is once the muscle is started to atrophy, you'll get the twitching. So what I'm trying to say is, twitching doesn't come first. The twitching happens when your muscle has started to die. So that is something that used to really reassure me, was that my muscle twitching was in multiple places, and that isn't how ALS works, because it starts in one area of the body and then it spreads around. And two, I didn't have clinical weakness, and I didn't have any muscle atrophy. So I think that's an important thing to remember. The majority of people that I speak to, when they tell me about their muscle twitching, it's in multiple places, and like I said, from what I've read, that isn't a cause. You shouldn't be concerned about that, but obviously easier said than done. So yeah, I think muscle twitching, guys, it's just one of those things, like, and I wish I had some kind of advice to give you, but I don't, because like I've been there myself, and like I said, like I had to literally hit rock bottom for me to be so preoccupied with something else that the muscle twitching was like the least of my concerns. But I don't feel like everyone should have to get to that point, do you know what I mean? I want people to be able to just get themselves out of it, and I'm not really sure how. You know, there are small things that I've read that can be helpful. So, you know, some people who are having muscle twitching, obviously they're anxious, but they're also not getting enough sleep. They may be having way too much caffeine because they're constantly tired. They may be really dehydrated. So it's like a vicious cycle, because once you're anxious, you start doing things that you shouldn't be doing, which is not helping your body, and then it's just making the twitching worse. So the only thing that I can suggest to try is, and this is from speaking to other people, is some people have told me that their twitching's gotten better when they've just started drinking loads of water, when they've cut out caffeine, when they've tried to, you know, go to bed earlier. And also, like, a lot of people have said that when they like start exercising, that can really help. And I think that is to do with the fact that you're actually giving your body a reason to work. So I actually tried this myself when I was having my muscle twitching, and to this day, every time I go for a walk with my dog, if I do longer than half an hour, when I come home, my legs, or like both legs all over, are twitching constantly, and it's like I've overexerted myself. So that personally, it didn't work for me, the whole exercise thing, but so many people that I've spoken to have said that exercise basically really helped their twitches. So that, you know, that could be something to try. But all in all, guys, they can last for months. And yeah, I wish I could say that they go away easily, but in my own personal experience, it took a long time, and every time that I do get stressed, now they come back. I still now and again will get them in my tongue, and I was convinced that I had the bulbar onset because I actually was like, I was constantly looking at my tongue. I was convinced that I could see areas that had atrophied. I was like poking my tongue out, and I was trying to see if I could hold it still, and I couldn't hold it still. It was constantly twitching, and I was getting my partner to do the same thing, and he was holding his still, and it's just awful. Like, it is awful. Just terrible. And like I said, so many people message me about muscle twitching, so it just goes to show, like, I'm not even kidding now, like, I've literally got about 65 unread messages in my Instagram inbox I need to go through, and literally nearly everyone is muscle twitching. So that just goes to show that so many people with anxiety have muscle twitching, and so many people believe that they have ALS. But judging how rare it is, and especially how rare it is in younger people, chances are, like, all of us don't have it, you know what I mean? So I can understand why, you know, why you're stressed. I can understand why you're worried, and some people worry because they only have it in one area of their body, and you know, that can obviously be concerning for them. But it's just like, and the other thing that reassured me, sorry, before I go off onto another tangent, is I think once I got to like the 2 or 3 month mark, and my only symptom still was just the twitching, I kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, it's been 3 months now, I'm still walking, I'm still talking, I'm still doing everything the same, so I'm probably okay. So I think, like, with a lot of like health anxiety fears, sometimes, and this is like such a cruel thing to think, is that you've almost got to let it like run its course to the point where you think, okay. So it's like logic finally sets in when you've had something for 3 months and nothing's changed, and you kind of have to accept that it isn't what you fear, because if it was ALS, or if it was something more serious, you know, something would have changed by now. And that has been the only thing that has got me out of all of my worries. So whether it be that my lymphoma worry, whether it be brain tumour, whether it be, I don't know, a heart attack, all of the things that I've worried about, like, no matter how many times I visit the doctor, no matter how many tests that I have, that doesn't reassure me. What seems to reassure me is the passing of time. So like I said, when a month has gone by, or when 2 months has gone by, that is kind of the thing where I think, okay, obviously it's, sorry, my partner is waving at me through the door. I think he's trying to tell me something. What's he trying to tell me? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, sorry. So basically, like I said, the passing of time seems to be the only thing that cures me, which sucks, because you know, I wish it was easier than that, but personally I still very much struggle. I still suffer with my health anxiety, and for me it just seems to be like a back-to-back loop of one condition after another. I may get like a couple of weeks in between, but yeah, but the one thing I will say is I do manage it a lot better now. Like, before I used to just lay in bed constantly and I wouldn't do anything. I was like so depressed. Now I do carry on with my life, even though like, so for example, at the moment I'm having like boob issues because I'm pregnant, and my irrational brain is telling me that I've got breast cancer, but I'm able to still function. And it's like, even though my brain's telling me I've got breast cancer, I kind of know deep down that I haven't, if that makes sense. And I really feel that that is down to therapy, changing a lot of my habits, not Googling as much anymore, and yeah, just talking about my problems more, being more open with people about health anxiety have all really helped. But yeah, I feel like I've blabbed a whole lot there. What I think I want to do is, I've probably missed loads of the things that I was planning on saying, so if you like have any questions, if you could write them in the comments below, and then if I've missed anything, I think maybe it would be a good idea for me to do another video and kind of address all of those questions, because like I said, muscle twitching seems to be something that so many people worry about, and I would love to kind of help people and be that reassurance, or help as much as I possibly can. So yeah, if you put your questions in the comments, and then I'll do another video basically, because I'm almost certain I would have forgotten a whole load of things. But yeah, I hope that was weirdly, I don't know, helpful. I'm feeling a bit flustered and brain fried myself today personally, because I'm just pregnant and my daughter doesn't sleep, and just it's been a hard week for me anyway. But yeah, that's all I'm gonna say, and I will see you guys on my next video. Bye.